Chamhanaich, Jonavula, the College in Gaelic. Welcome everybody to the Gaelic College. It's Mr. Callan, I'm Colin MacDonald, and we're very excited to have a book launch here tonight for Angus MacLeod's new graphic novel, Chamhanaich. And I just wanted to mention that we're live streaming tonight's event. So hello out there for everybody who's watching, Chamhanaich. And we ask that everybody else try to stay off of our public internet just so it doesn't interfere with the live stream. Agus Gàidhlig Gomor, thank you very much. Agus Inish Bahalam Falchakwood Eid would like to welcome, this is Emily McEwan, Fajita, and with Bradan Press, and she is joining with us, Angus MacLeod. So please welcome Bahalam Falchakwood Eid, Angus MacLeod. Angus MacLeod, everyone.
Thanks everyone for coming tonight, as Colin said. And we're here to launch the new graphic novel published by Bradan Press by Angus MacLeod and there's MacLeod, Angus Chamhanaich, and Penny Mahaid. The title in Gaelic is Chamhanaich, and I'll leave it to the author, artist himself, to explain the meaning of that title to us. So, take it away.
Gàidhlig. Chai ídi orm shoyin sa Gaelic agus a verla egel orm nan jenin shinga vi me jam fat na haichig skakoti shinri dunya mission as olga. I was asked to do this in Gaelic and in English, but I think we'd be here all night, and I don't think anybody would want that, me least of all. So I'm just going to do this in English, so if you'll forgive me for that. Yeah, this is kind of strange for me. This is my hobby. This is what I do for fun, and I've been doing this for years and never really focused on getting anything published. And it's kind of like, spending a week or so on a jigsaw puzzle and then discovering somebody wants to buy it. It's just really kind of odd for me. Yeah, the title, Chamhanaich, I'm terrible at titles. I can put a title on a story, but these stories, they're not all about the same thing, and they're kind of a mishmash. I didn't really know what kind of a title to put on it.
There's nicer words than mishmash words. Miscellany.
Okay, it's a miscellany.
Dusan skialach and a dozen stories.
So Emily asked me for a title, and I was going over this in my mind for 2 or 3 weeks, and I was just getting nowhere. And then I was talking to my cohort in crime, fellow teacher with Explore Gaelic, Fiona Smith, and I think it took her about 2 minutes to come up with the title, Chamhanaich. So the credit for the title goes to Fiona, not to me. And I think it's a very appropriate title for this book. Chamhanaich, we take it to mean sunrise or sunset, that time of the day when it's getting brighter or getting darker. And what Chamhanaich actually means is a time of a changing light. So that's why it fits so well with sunrise and sunset. And a time of changing light is a time when the veil between the worlds thins and weakens, and things from the other side can come in to see us and we can see them. So considering the subject matter of a lot of these stories, I thought it fit very well. So I have to thank Fiona Smith for that. Other than that, the stories, there's often something supernatural about them. Sometimes there isn't. To me, the stories are more about the people in the stories rather than the settings and whatever's happening to them. It's about how they deal with these things. Yeah, and I don't really have much more to say on that subject. I'll show you.
A cash duck and boot. So yeah, can you tell Anish you gave becken me in technique? Right. So I just asked if he could tell you a little bit about the technique that he used. So when Angus first showed me these stories, it was a stack of manila folders with kind of bits of paper sticking out of the edges, a big stack, and he just plopped them on the kitchen table next to the jam and the scones and the cheese and the tea. Oh, don't spill the tea. And, I said, what's this? And I think I was like the last person to know that you were doing these stories. And I went home and I told my husband, Tim, Angus has these amazing, incredible comic book, like graphic novel stories that he's done. And my husband said, oh yeah, I told you about those 10 years ago. I was like, what? I had no memory to you. So, but they were obviously, and it was Wayne.
Yes.
Hi Wayne.
Yeah. Hi Wayne, thank you.
If you're watching on the live stream. So it was Wayne who sent me an email and said, I really think you should publish Angus's stories. What do you think? And I said to myself, heck yeah. So, I now. So yeah, and then when you see the original paper, for those of you who've been fortunate to see his original work, which we scanned into the computer for the graphic novel, it's incredibly fine and detailed, and just every little hair on people's heads is perfectly in place, or wildly out of place as the story demands. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the technique he used to create the stories.
Well, that's the Celtic idea that if there's a space there, you have to fill it with something. You have to put some kind of detail in there somewhere. You can't leave white spaces. That's wrong. And that's one of the things I'm always struggling with is, okay, I need black spaces. I need white spaces. That's white. Yes, it's okay. Leave it alone. And so because there's always that in me, no, it's white. I have to fill it. So.
Well, the struggle was entirely internal, because when you look at the final results, you don't notice any imbalance there at all. I think the negative space and the positive space is perfectly balanced with, the detail. So.
Well, thank you. I disagree. I used to do this years ago, and I didn't do it for about 15 years. And then when I started doing it again, the rust was apparent. And the rust is still apparent to me, because I should tell you, this is what I do at the end of the day, and my work day usually ends about 10 p.m. So 10:30 till midnight, 12:30, I'll be sitting there watching Netflix or something on YouTube and doing my drawings. So this is what I do. Like I say, it's my hobby. So I'm not doing enough of it to improve a whole lot, but it is what it is. So. I'm MacLeod, I'm catchy. So this is what I use. I just brought this. That's okay. I shouldn't get it on. I just brought this to show you, and there's only some pencil work on these if anybody wants to look at them. But this is what I use. It's regular cardstock.
Don't spill your tea on it. That'll be for volume 2, possibly volume 3.
So yeah, I had to get something that was stiff enough that I could use it, but pliable enough that I could get it through the printer. So that I could get the lines on. Because I don't draw these lines, the border lines myself. And I had, if you look, I'll leave this for anybody if they want to look at it. I put the letters in myself, but these things were done over a period of years, and I'd think, oh, I like this font. And then 6 months later, oh, I like that font. So it was all a jumble of fonts. So Emily came along and straightened it all out. No, we're doing this one font. So that made it look a lot better. And I do have to thank Emily. She has put an awful lot of work into this. And thank you for all that work and for believing in this enough to do it.
Shade of Haven.
I also want to thank Colleen for going through it and editing it and not telling people how bad the story is. I mean, I wasn't going to say that. No, thank you. And Gàidhlig and MacLeod, who also went over it and looked at the Gàidhlig and let me know, yeah, the Gàidhlig's okay. I was very happy that he made very few changes to what I had written, because it is my second language, and sometimes in Gaelic people can be quite merciless about how they look at your work and say, ah, yeah, he made a mistake. Ah, yeah, but that's not right. So there's this. There's always that. It's much safer to write in English than it is in Gaelic. So I was feeling that pressure of, you know, when I put this out there, did I do something wrong? Something I didn't notice. What I wrote 8 years ago, do I know better than that now? And I wouldn't do it today. So I was very happy that Gàidhlig looked over it and gave it his okay.
Like, I think that's important. It's important to say, though, when you're making a book, like, even if we're working in English as our own native language, in the process of making a book, one of the important things that makes it a good book is having more pairs of eyes on it than just the author. You know, there's editing, there's proofreading, there's potentially art directing, cover design, cover coloring, which you could talk about a bit. And I think that we can be realistic about that in Gaelic too. It doesn't have to be, if you're going to do it in Gaelic, it doesn't have to be that you did it all yourself and it was perfect the first time it came out. Like, that's just not how human beings are. We all create imperfect things, and we all benefit from, you know, helping each other out, giving advice, giving corrections and whatnot. So you know, absolutely, publishing is a team effort, and everybody puts their piece into it. And Angus's name is on the front, and because it's his ideas and it's his book, but it's also like the whole team had a role in making it good. And I think we can be, you know, we don't have to be so hard on ourselves in Gaelic and say, well, I have to do it all by myself and it's got to be perfect when I do it, or I'm no good as a Gaelic speaker. Like, that's just not how life is in any language. Yeah, so I think we can accept that for ourselves in Gaelic too, that, you know, we work better in teams and, you know, helping each other out and giving feedback. So that's my philosophy anyway. I'm sticking to it. But, well, actually, I can talk about the coloring too real quick. So, yeah, so the color, so you notice the inside is in black and white, of course, to a scalp, and the cover is color. And so in the world of comic books and graphic novels, sometimes the job of coloring is actually a separate person. They're called a colorist in English. I think Jim Fackel, Yemishin Fackelud, maybe another sunshine on a Gaelic. I skrivit down, it's in there on the copyright page. Yeah. Okay. So the colorist is actually Sandy Carruthers, who I think some of you know. One person here knows them at least. And Sandy lives in PEI, and Sandy was actually the comic book artist who drew the very first Men in Black comic book, like before it was the movie starring Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. Before that, it was a comic book series, and Sandy drew it. So, which just goes to show the amount of amazing talent we have in the Maritimes. And so it was really cool to be able to take this to Sandy, and Sandy was really wowed by the artwork, by the way. He was very impressed by it, and he was happy to be a part of it as well by coloring it in his unique style. Sandy's style, I think, is kind of inspired by old airbrushing. And the colors that we used in the sky, that was actually, I found somebody's photo on Facebook in one of, like, the We Love Nova Scotia Facebook group where people put their beautiful nature photos, and somebody had a photo from East Lawrencetown Beach of a sunset, and it had some green in it. You know, it was like blue like sort of blue into yellow, into blue, into green, into yellow, into orange and red. And I said, oh, that's what I'd like to see in this gigantic wild sky that's in this image that Angus has drawn, you know, with however many planets, however many moons in the sky, right? So I think Sandy did a great job of realizing that vision.
And I was really glad to have Sandy Carruthers do this because I've known of his artwork since the 90s, and I'm very impressed by his work. So it was an honor to have him do the cover. Just pursuant to what we were talking about before, we're very hard on ourselves in the Gaelic language, the Gaelic community. If you don't get everything just perfect, well, people will point out that one little thing you got wrong. And I honestly think I was doing these stories for myself. I was not looking to get them published. They were just for me. And I really believe that if I had come to this with the idea I'm going to do something to get it published, I think I would have been paralyzed. Because there's so much. Anyway, enough about that. But we need to not be so hard on ourselves. We don't have to be perfect. So, where were we going before we got off?
Oh, you were going to talk about the brush and the ink
that
you use, because how does he get such amazing work out of such simple tools? This is magic.
It's really all you need. Well, I didn't bring a pencil because I figured you know what a pencil is.
Oh, and some talent. That's all you need, plus some talent.
Lots of time. So, first of all, I'll draw something with a pencil. And then what I use for 99% of what I do is a brush of this size. It's a 00 or a 1 or a 1.5, around that size. Black India ink. And rarely when I want straight lines or a very smooth curved line, I'll use this pen. One other thing that's different about the work that I do is every comic book you will ever see in the world is drawn on pieces of paper that are 11 by 18 inches. 18 inches by 11. And then they're shrunk down to comic book size, which means they look much crisper and clearer. Any little mistake you've made in a line, you shrink it down like that, it just disappears like magic. But what I've done here, you will see it the same size as what I drew it. So it's going to look a little rougher. The lines aren't going to be as smooth, but it is a truer indication of what I drew.
Honestly though, it really looks pretty much perfect. I was working at it blown up on my screen, like about this big, and I'm like, I'm looking for mistakes here and I'm not really seeing any. Oh, there's a little blob of ink that flew off the brush, and we just take those out of Photoshop, right? So we did do a little bit of cleaning up, sorry.
How long since you got your glasses?
What?
How long since you got your glasses?
It's not well, these are progressives, so I have a zone down here. So if any of you like me need a separate pair of reading glasses, or you snuck them into your regular glasses so that people can't tell. But if you're like that, if you're like me, take a magnifying glass and look at the book when you get home, because there's just so much little detail in there. It's really cool. And yeah, no, it was delightful to work on them. I had to redo the speech bubbles as well, because some of the ink that from the printer kind of bled a little bit into the papers, so we just covered that up with some crisp white, and we were good to go. But you know, you can't. I was going to say lipstick on a pig. This is not that. Like you can cover up anything, but you can't. If you don't start with an excellent foundation, it doesn't matter how you improve it. It still won't look any good. But this is not that. This was like just this was like cleaning the little blips and blops around the edges of some really amazing artwork.
Well, when you've got the line at the edge of a panel that is really, really thin, and you're trying to fill in right up to the line, yeah, you're going to go over it a few times, and that's what you straighten away. And I also discovered that I'm not allowed to use whitener anymore.
Oh, that's all right. We just re-whiten it in Photoshop.
But luckily, I very seldom use whitener. If some artists will use it to make streaks or to do different things like that, but I don't know. I like to just use the black India ink, and I don't use whitener unless there's a mistake that I can't fix with the ink.
Or unless there's a starry sky with millions
Oh,
and
yes.
millions of
I do
teeny
that.
tiny little stars. I watched Netflix too while I was cleaning up your stars. In Photoshop. No, it's good.
How many series did you watch?
Don't ask. It was great. It was good. We watched all the Marvel movies. Pretty much, you know. It turns out to be it's really fulfilling to be like watching comic book movies and working on a graphic novel at the same time. It makes you feel like you're really doing something cool.
Yeah, Umbrella Academy. If you haven't watched that, go for it.
Right. Oh yeah. I'll watch Umbrella Academy while I work on Volume 2.
Yeah.
There is a Volume 2 in the works, and there is an English translation of Volume 1 in the works as well. I don't think you mind me saying that, but it's a very carefully done translation. It's not just a feed it through Google Translate, God forbid. You know, the text is being worked on and edited and reworked so that it will be, you know, every bit as polished as Gaelic.
So if any of you have ever tried translating from Gaelic to English, you will realize that when you get into English it sounds very stilted. I am after the dog to seeing, you know, and things like that. So so I rewrote it, tried to put it in normal, everyday English, looked over it and said, oh my gosh, that's not going to work. Nobody's going to read that. So I've rewritten it the second time, all of the stories, and I'll rewrite all of them the third time. And hopefully by then, they'll be what I would like them to be in English. I'm finding it more difficult to rewrite the stories from Gaelic than it would be to write them originally in English.
Well, I think that's an important point. This is the first graphic novel. So there have been some graphic novels published in Gaelic in Scotland, but this, as far as we're aware, is the first graphic novel to be published that was written in Gaelic, like Gaelic Lahus. You know, so written originally in Gaelic. And it's also the first Gaelic graphic novel to be illustrated by a Gaelic-speaking artist. And of course, then it's also the first Gaelic graphic novel to be written and illustrated by the same person. So it has a lot of first, and the first Gaelic graphic novel to be published in Canada, too. So, yes. Yeah.
Because this backwoods country boy has a weird hobby.
I mean, most interesting things start as weird hobbies anyway, so, you know, it's all good. It's all good. So, be you Gaelic skill?
And the David question?
Well, suiting. Yeah, except I did claw back one that somebody bought already just to have one to read. While you're figuring that out, or getting ready for that, I'll just say that we've had a little problem. The pandemic has affected this book too, in some ways. Well, maybe it gave Angus more time to work on stories at home, but the downside was that just this fall, this huge kind of pandemic supply chain breakdown thing has happened with publishers, book printers. There's a paper shortage, so at first it was struggling to get a spot on our book printer schedule, and then I don't know what's gone wrong with the shipping companies, but we had 200 copies. I had 200 copies shipped a month ago, and UPS destroyed every single one of them. They broke the spines on all 200 copies. Every box looked like they had played rugby with it. So I opened them all up, photographed them, repacked them, sent the damage claim, and our wonderful printer printed 200 more copies, found another spot for us on their schedule, printed 200 more copies, and said, we'll send them by FedEx Ground this time. FedEx Ground ruined half of them. So this is why we've actually run out, but we will have them again, hopefully within about a month, definitely before Christmas. And you know, I'll be coming up again so I can bring them low because I still owe you your author's copies as well. And so I'll be bringing more up here in November, and then we'll have them as well on the website. We can sell a single copy with $6 shipping. But so this is what's happening, and it's a struggle. They completely ruined another shipment of 200 children's books that I don't even have to show you because they got wet. They left them out on my back porch in Hurricane Larry. They got all wet and ruined. They ruined half of our shipment of Ian of New Scotland. Half the books in each box were squished. The ends of the spines were squished. And 100 out of the 400 copies of Bradan and the Mermaid. No, that was FedEx Ground that did those. So anyway, it's been a saga, and I've been deeply distressed, and this makes up for it completely. So Angus dul cadan aleve agus Gaidhlig. Like it's kind of hard because the graphic novel is a really visual medium, but he's going to try and tell you. Do you want to? And Gianu Storma. Much skill. How are some skill? Okay. Do that. Okay. Sure.
So I'm just going to read the first page from one of the stories in the book, Aiken Storma, The Night of the Storm. And
It's the last story in the book, and you can look on with your neighbor if you don't have a copy.
And I'm going to do this one because Emily said it gave her nightmares.
This one is still like haunting me. I think, oh.
The author in me is terribly pleased. Gaelic College, Cún Gríanach, Gréisian J. Dach and Yawsage, Colaisde the Nair. Bluish Sorvis Clag, Miar, Gus is a Garston, Sibi Kayat as ye. Van Calig, Carnio Humanda, Good Hoing. Van the Hian Academy Hawkerach. Margar Margar Fis Choricanachka, Nachroichgisha. Chorigi Cool is Moinchin Jeevinchin, Vasil and La Raipa. So the first page, this is going to be rough.
On the fly.
On the fly.
Just a translation on the fly. Don't hold them responsible.
The day brightened calmly, sunny, shortly after Elizabeth's father went to the market. The gentle breeze playing with the hair in her arms as she was watching after him, looking at him. There was an aroma to the ocean that was rather unusual. The birds were a little bit not restful, so I told you it was going to be rough. As if they knew something that she didn't. She put behind her these idle thoughts, and the work of the day was ahead of her. So that's the first page. It gets better. So about question, anybody have any questions? Or? Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration for the stories?
Oh yes, that's a good idea.
So a question was asked if Angus can talk about the inspiration for some of the stories.
You will find traditional Gaelic or Celtic motifs in a lot of them, themes. But I've also done a lot of reading of Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard. I have read so many different genres. So you will find some influences of them in there. I very much ascribe to Edgar Allan Poe's theme that nothing in your story, there should be nothing in your story that doesn't lead to the climax of it. No extra fleshing out. Just, no sidebars, no tangents, head straight to the... So I try to do that. And there is one story in there, Yawls and Chiaskid, Joe the Fisherman, that is very much inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. Does anybody here know who H.P. Lovecraft is? Yeah? Mm-hmm. The Cthulhu mythos. Mm-hmm. He's quite a unique writer, and if you don't mind being scared out of your tree, yeah, he's just well worth reading. So there's some of that in there. The artwork is inspired a lot by Bernie Wrightson was part of it, but I seem to be moving away from that. Wallace Wood, John Buscema, a variety of different artists that I saw when I was younger reading comic books. And comic books have changed a lot. They're now glossy, they're full color, they're everything is and computer generated and everything. But I grew up, they were sense when I bought them first. And they were on newsprint. And the pictures were smaller and much more detailed. And there was a story there that took you more than 2 minutes to read. So I was very much into comics into the 1990s, when all of a sudden it suddenly became about these big flashy panels with not really great artwork and a story that you could read in less than 2 minutes. So I kind of dropped mainstream comics at that time. So my work is much more like what you would have seen in the 60s and even in the 50s than it is. And by the way, the 50s is before my time, as you know. But it's more like the artwork you'll see there, and that's what I want it to be. So, did that answer you? I kind of took off on a, I don't know if I was, did I stay on your question? I did, okay, good. So.
Because it's your inspiration.
Yeah.
We actually picked the font for the cover, the title design, kind of inspired by the same era of comic books. Yeah, just to try to echo the influences in the stories. Any other questions?
En de schrijvers, hoe de skiowachten gaan ze weer? No, wel tradition?
No, skriving, yeah. No, I wrote them all, yeah.
Oh, you know.
So nobody else to blame. Anything else from anybody? If not, we're going to have lunch. That's not much of a threat, is it? Interesting vision, yes or no?
Oh, Hakeshtik Helen.
Hij is een geweld Jeffers George de Wollevish gegens Stoemer Shin als de neach en wel het kengeltje rish biol adish na Gaelic.
How could you change reveal na Gaelic? Some of the otherworldly creatures in this book come directly from Gaelic. Some of them are a little more tangential. There is, at one point, there is a, you could say that it's coming from the myth of the Seal people, but at the same time, this is not one of the Seal people from the myths. So I've taken the myths and I've used them as I wanted to use them. There is one story, I don't think it, no, it's not in here.
It'll be in the next one. Jay.
Feature? No.
Oh, big feature, Sana.
Kenya. No, okay, so there's a story I've done about the feature, which is a mythical monster in Gaelic stories, but I'm telling it from the point of view of the feature itself. Why it's doing what it's doing, and just try to, instead of, oh, we're scared of that thing, I'm over there saying, oh, I'm that thing, and this is what I like. So I take things and I try to turn them on their heads and twist them around.
Are you open to accepting film offers?
Yes. I think some of the stories would make pretty decent little films.
Yeah, fellow gays job. Oh, my gosh.
What was your typical work day like?
Well, over the years it's changed.
I'll just repeat it for the live stream. What was your typical work day like?
Yeah, thank you. My typical work day now is I'll be working around the house, in the garden, or on the firewood, or whatever else needs to be done around the house. During the morning, early afternoon, I'll have my first class at 3 o'clock. I'll have another class at 7:30 and another class at 9, each of them lasting an hour. So I'm through with work at 10, and then I start doing this. And this is my relaxation. You're in these classes, you're very focused, you're working, and you're concentrating on this, and when I start doing this, it all just floats away. So for me, when these things are drawn, and they're just sitting in the house unpublished, they've already served their function. They've already calmed me down and get me ready to go to sleep at night. So.
And then I come pick them up and scan them and I start stressing them out all over again with questions about this, that, and the other thing. So
No, that's all good. Uh-oh.
So how whether be Gàidhlig na scíalach an seo as na clásic and it is to Chamhanaich Irlanda agus bio agus a biu a Czechis bu opera no class ed na scíal ed and the hour show. So so you've used I know from hearing from other people that you've used these stories in your classes sometimes over the years, like you use it as a teaching tool, and are you thinking of doing like a workshop, please see yes, on the stories that people could take their book with them to this online workshop and kind of go through a story and pick it apart line by line and explain the grammar or whatnot, the vocabulary? Please say yes.
I really don't want to push that myself because I think it would be hard for students to say, no, we don't want to do your work. You know, I don't want to put them in that kind of a position. But I was asked to do something one time, and the fifth story, Chamhanaich, the Old Woman of the Woods, actually works quite well without the graphics. So this was a transcription class, so I read the story, sent them the sound files, and they did very well with it. So I've done that. I'm certainly open to using this in my classes, but I'm going to wait till I'm asked because I don't feel comfortable asking people, hey, you want to do my book? You know, that just, no. But if somebody wants to, I'm certainly open to doing it.
I might be the one asking, so we'll see. Also, we might think about doing an audio book at some point. I'll have to apply for a grant so that we can get paid to do it.
That'd be nice.
But, you know, that would be good. Yeah, it's put online, and then if you buy the book, you could, like, read it while you listen to it. I think that's something, there seems to be a pretty big demand for audiobooks in Gaelic because, you know, as we're still renewing and rebuilding the language, like, you can't get, we all know you really can't get everything you need from the printed page. You need to hear it, yeah, at the same time. So yeah, we'll think about that. Oh, Colaisde.
Is there anything that you want to share that you hope would be asked but hasn't been yet?
That is a great question. I wish I was that forward thinking, but no, I'm just kind of sitting here waiting to see if anybody has any inspiration for me, because I'm out.
I have a question, Angus.
Yes.
Do you write in English as well?
I have written in English, yeah. And as I said, I've written comic books in English before. That was many years ago in a different life. And as I said, I found it much easier to write in English first than it is now to translate from Gaelic into English. That said, I find it easier to write in Gaelic than in English.
Why?
Because Gaelic has the sentence structures, the words, the ways of putting things together that make everything so much easier. I can remember writing in English, and writing a comic book is much closer to writing poetry than it is to writing prose, because you have to have a strict economy of words. You can't use 50 words to describe something. You've got 10. And if you can't do it in 10, then you're done. And I can remember spending days trying to figure out, how do I say this? How do I put this together in English? And it really felt like I was fighting with the language. That it was resisting me, and I had to wrestle it to the ground and win. And Gaelic is more like you're playing with it. It's like, okay, that didn't work out. Right? Let's try this. Let's try. And I find it much easier to work in Gaelic than in English. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question. That was something I meant to mention. That
I'll just jump in here and say, as the letterer, I wore a lot of hats on your book here, and letterer was one of them, and I was also working on another graphic novel. We have a proof copy of it over there. We'll have it next month. That was written in English and then translated. And yours was much easier because of the fact that Gaelic text is usually, if you have side by side two texts in English and Gaelic that say the same thing, roughly, the Gaelic one is always going to be about 1.2 to 1.3 times longer, like more letters, more words, more space. And when you're working in a graphic format, you have to be very mindful of how big, literally how big are your speech bubbles compared to your people in the panels. And if you've got the speech bubble like crowding in on their head, you know, it doesn't look so good. But we did not have that problem at all because the comic was created from the beginning as a Gaelic comic. So is there enough room for the words? Yes, that's not even a thing that you have to worry about in the slightest. So that was refreshing. But it definitely makes a difference. Makes a big difference in lettering. Oh, and also the word asmúinneach is the absolute worst word to typeset in the Gaelic language because it's really long, it's really commonly used, and you can't really break it up very easily. You can sort of hyphenate it, but hyphenating is not nearly as common in Gaelic as it is in English because so many Gaelic words have hyphens in them, so it's more confusing if you're hyphenating Gaelic. So like you try to do it as sparingly as possible. And I think, I can't remember exactly for this book, but definitely for Anna Ruig, for Anne of Green Gables in Gaelic, asmúinneach was the only word in the book that we had to hyphenate. We just couldn't squeeze it all onto one line sometimes. So that's a bit of Gaelic graphic novels trivia.
You must have forgotten about the word Gàidhlig.
Oh, Gàidhlig, yeah. But I don't know, but that one's not as frequently used. That's the thing. So like you might get one or two Gàidhligs in a book, but like 10 asmúinneachs, and then you just eventually one of them's going to be a problem.
So one thing I wanted to mention was, if it's done in English, it's going to be completely rewritten in English for an English audience. So the story is going to be the same, but if you're looking to use it as a learning tool, you're going to find places where things are a little bit different, places where things are a lot different. So I wouldn't recommend it as a learning tool.
And that's where you're going to have to organize a class and invite Angus to teach you. If you want the literal, boring, clunky, word-for-word translation that helps you understand the Gaelic better, that's for that.
And once you try translating, you realize how much you lose in translation. And that happens both ways. So.
Agus catchafai sin leabhar a seo agus airline.
Shig, so Reich Sin Amach, that's terrible Beerlish. We sold out and for the reason I mentioned, which was that we unfortunately didn't have that many copies. Angus also has legions of faithful students online who pre-ordered way more copies than we expected, so some of them were spoken for that way. But we should have them again. These ones printed in Canada, we should have these again hopefully within a month at bradanpress.com. That's BRADANPRESS.com. Bradan, Clo Bradan. It's actually available also on Amazon. So if you have friends in the States who want to order it and they don't care about getting Angus to actually physically autograph it, they can order it on Amazon. Or it's bookshop.org/shop/Bradan Press, I think. But everything's on our website. We have all these different colored buttons on the page, on the books page, and you can say, I want to buy it here, I want to buy it there, and you can always email and ask. This particular one I don't think we'll be putting into the shops here like we have with some of our other books, so yeah, just get in touch if you want to buy one. And I really sincerely apologize to everyone who wasn't able to buy one tonight. We will do everything we can to get it into your hands absolutely before Christmas time, I promise. And we'll work on that. And if you want to if you're not in touch with Angus, if you're not in touch to bother Angus to get one, then come up and see me. I got a mailing list, sign up, but we can use some space on the page. You can put your name and email down, and I can email and let you know when I have them ready to go. I guess you know.
Any other
Oh, did you have a question? No. How about this? Yes to the song. Oh, I have to not put you on the spot.
Well, this is a song that has been sung on the North Shore, Big Gàidhlig, all around the bay here. Bordering Island, Norway, not Norway, Fran was. Ever since the first settlers from Lewis came here, there's never been a time that this song wasn't sung. And there aren't that many of us left here right now, so maybe the day is coming when this song is going to be forgotten and not sung anymore. But that day is not today. So, Eleanor, the Autumn Heather. Heel nach mich schwanen rüch, nam pirg, nam raten, nam verdags, nan list, nan lachens, nan nopens, nan osens, nan kul, elenisch, nam boatje, kani, nan lüg. Aljoes beklievig, bij liefs en de door, moet is lenig, hier mongoors, nu jaars is liener, leelijk oos, wij passer jasje, san die dan ploen. Ja, kun ja waar je van begeerte begaan, ja, gaan me en schlier wel geen je als toebracht. Kijk hier niet eens jou, hoe wil je chanten, hoe wil je geest wirklich und klein. Schön gelaufen in der Nase.
Chamhanaich, Angus, Gaidhlig, Sunshine enough. Well, Fiona Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate it. Okay. I'll be back at the table. So if you want to put your name down to let me know when, for me to let you know when there's more copies of Angus's book, that's cool. If you want to just take a look at the other books, that's cool too.